The poor can just make do with water, Mirabel's mother-in-law said, laughing uproariously. I frowned at her lack of class. Wait a minute, could it be? Right after, my sister-in-law looked at me, her face turning pale. I let out a small chuckle. I'm Talia Morgan, turning 54 this year. I divorced my ex-husband when our daughter, Mirabel, was just 3 years old. The reason for the divorce was irreconcilable differences. My ex-husband never worked and was always drinking. No matter how many times I spoke to him, he never changed. Naturally, our household finances suffered. I didn't need such a family and decided to divorce him. We divorced without any child support or alimony. Since then, it's been just Mirabel and me. I had been a homemaker until the divorce. When I had to raise Mirabel alone, I started working tirelessly. Unable to leave young Mirabel at home alone, I initially scraped by with piecework. Of course, life was just getting by. Even working from dawn to dusk, the pay was low. Thus, it was a life of constant saving. There were times when I had nothing to eat the day before payday. But despite these struggles, I managed to raise Mirabel until she became an adult. Once Mirabel started working, I had more free time and began devoting more time to my work. Using my experience in piecework, I started making handmade items. This eventually became a successful business. There was also a change in my personal life. That change was Mirabel's engagement. Mirabel began dating John, a man she met at her company, after some time. John is her supervisor, 5 years older than her. Mirabel once showed me a photo of John. He seemed like a fine young man. Mirabel, having learned from her father's example, chose a man who seemed sincere. I'm happy for the happiness Mirabel has found. My life is at a turning point. From now on, I'm going to live as I please. That's what I had been thinking. Then, one day. Mom, I have something to tell you. Mirabel approached me after dinner. It was unusual for her to speak with such hesitation. Thinking this, I replied to Mirabel. What's up all of a sudden? You seem different today. Then Mirabel, hesitantly, said to me. Actually, I'm gonna get married to John. Really? That's great. Congratulations. I haven't actually met John, so I don't know much about him. I just hope he's like the person in the photos. I'm so glad you said that, Mom. I was worried you might be against it. Mirabel seemed relieved that I wasn't opposed. She clearly looked relieved. Then, Mirabel suggested. So, I was wondering if you could meet John this coming weekend. It seems like Mirabel wanted to introduce John to me before they got married. Being the serious person she is. She probably wants to show me John's face to reassure me. I nodded firmly at Mirabel. Sure, I'd like to meet John. I want to see what kind of person he is. Mom. Mirabel said happily. So, it was arranged for me to meet John. Sunday rolled around. I was waiting at home for Mirabel and her fiancé. It was just before 11 a.m. Mirabel would be bringing John over soon. Then, the doorbell rang. Hello? I opened the door, and there stood Mirabel and John. Nice to meet you. I'm John Black, engaged to Mirabel. Please, it's a pleasure to meet you, John said, bowing politely. I felt a bit relieved seeing his manners. Mirabel is my precious only daughter. I'm glad her partner is a decent person. Pleased to meet you too. Come on in, I said, inviting Mirabel and John into the house. John seemed like a fine young man even inside the house. He brought famous brand sweets that you'd find in department stores as a gift. And he talked about how he and Mirabel met, all the while smiling. John, stop it, you're embarrassing me. Mirabel said shyly. Seeing Mirabel like this was refreshing for me. However, the pleasant atmosphere quickly shifted the next moment. By the way, is your father at work today? John asked, looking around curiously. His face had a puzzled expression. I was terribly puzzled by John's remark. Glancing at Mirabel, I noticed her complexion was a bit off. She probably hadn't told John about us being a single-parent family. Honestly, it was wrong of Mirabel to keep it a secret. In traditional households, single-parent families often face prejudice. I braced myself and decided to explain the situation to John. Mirabel might not have told you, but, actually, I'm divorced and we're a single-parent family. John's face, which had been smiling until then, suddenly went expressionless for a moment. "What's wrong?" I asked him, feeling anxious. I thought maybe it was a mistake for me to have told him. But in the next moment, John was smiling again. "It's nothing. Please don't worry about it," he said, still smiling. "Really?" I replied, still puzzled. Despite my confusion about John's change in expression, I didn't ask any further. After that, the wedding plans moved forward smoothly. Mirabel seemed excited about preparing for the wedding, asking things like, "What kind of dress should I choose for the color change? What color dress do you think would be good for me, Mom?" "Well, maybe a color you like?" I answered, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't forget John's blank expression that day. His face had gone completely empty. Maybe his family was strict about marrying into a single-parent household. So, I asked Mirabel, "What did John say on the way back that day? About us being a single-parent family?" I thought maybe John's family was opposing their marriage. Mirabel looked puzzled and replied, "He didn't really say anything special." "Mom, are you worrying too much?" However, my bad feeling proved to be true. It happened one night. "Mom." Mirabel called out my name as soon as she came home. Her expression was quite gloomy. I was surprised and asked her, "Mirabel, why such a downcast face? What happened?" Mirabel remained silent. Unusual for her usually optimistic self. After a while, she started to speak, albeit reluctantly. "Actually, John's family doesn't seem too happy about our marriage," she said with a sad face. "Why?" "Because we're a single-parent family. They think John might struggle because we're poor." That was a terrible thing to say. Hearing such words from the in-laws must be very hard. I asked Mirabel seriously, "Was it John's mother who said that to you?" Mirabel nodded silently. I was outraged by the incident. I didn't want us to be stereotyped as poor just because we're a single-parent family. We've had our struggles, but now we're living a normal life. In fact, I've been working as hard as any man. Then Mirabel shared something even more unbelievable. John's sister-in-law said some things too. "Like what?" I asked her. "She accused us of planning to mooch off John, saying that there's no way they could become a family with people like us." Mirabel answered, looking very downcast. She must have been deeply hurt by these direct accusations. To say such awful things even about me, someone they've never met, is unbelievable. John's in-laws are just beyond belief. "What did John say at that time?" I inquired. I recalled John's face when he visited our home recently. Maybe his expressionless moment was due to anticipating his family's reaction. It seems his family has quite a prejudice against single-parent households. I was worried about the future. Then, Mirabel spoke up. "John defended me. After all, I work at the same company as John, so the idea of me asking him for money is ridiculous." I felt a sense of relief. "If John's standing up for you, then that's reassuring," I found myself saying. If John didn't defend Mirabel and sided with his family, I'd be worried about her future. She would probably continue to be belittled by his family. But if John stands by her, it's a little better. A few days later, Mirabel suggested a meeting with John's family. "Mom, I want to have a meeting with John's family before the wedding. I'm really sorry to ask this." It was apparently a proposal from John's mother. "You should greet your future in-laws at least once. Your mother has that much common sense, right?" she was told. John and I couldn't say no. "I'm really sorry." Mirabel apologized, considering my feelings. I was going to meet John's family for Mirabel's marriage greeting. Honestly, I had no idea what they might say. I didn't really want to go, but it seemed like the right thing to do. "That's fine." I agreed. And so came the day of the marriage greeting. Along with Mirabel, I went to a restaurant near John's family home. The reason for choosing a restaurant was suggested by John's mother. "We can't let you cross our threshold yet since you're not officially part of the family. There's a fancy restaurant nearby, why don't we meet there?" The restaurant chosen by John's mother was a high-end place, costing about $600 per person for a course meal. I occasionally go there for business, but rarely in my private life. I was puzzled why John's mother insisted on this restaurant. When Mirabel first greeted John's family, his mother had chosen a cafe nearby. Moreover, Mirabel had to pay for his mother's tea. According to her, it was only natural since you're going to be part of the family. Though, John did pay her back later. I wondered why John's mother had such an attitude when she was the one inviting us for the marriage greeting. I frowned involuntarily. However, if I, as Mirabel's mother, refused, it would undoubtedly be seen as rude. And Mirabel would be the one to suffer after the marriage. Not wanting that, I reluctantly accepted the proposal. I put on light makeup and headed to the agreed place. I usually wear more makeup for work, but I thought it best to be modest today. My outfit was also much plainer than usual. A flashy outfit might make John's family think I'm extravagant with money. Given they already think I'm after John's money, a modest appearance seemed wise. With these thoughts, Mirabel and I entered the high-end restaurant and were led to a private room by the staff. Upon opening the door, there were John and his family. "Mirabel, mother-in-law, thank you for coming today," John said politely. "Likewise," I responded to John. Then I faced John's parents and sister-in-law. They were looking at Mirabel and me with smirking, condescending gazes. It was clear we were not welcomed by John's family. I greeted them cautiously. "Thank you for your precious time today. I'm Talia, Mirabel's mother. It's a pleasure to meet you." Then, John's mother said with a sneering laugh, "I don't really feel like welcoming you, though." "Mom!" John reprimanded his mother, but she was unfazed. "After all, being a single parent is a problem, right? You must be struggling with money. Even your clothes are so plain." She scrutinized my outfit from top to bottom and snorted derisively. My deliberately plain outfit had backfired. John's sister-in-law also joined in the mocking. "You should have married someone decent." John drew the short straw, didn't he? Taking in a poor mother-daughter duo. I felt irritated by John's sister-in-law's remarks. Such comments at a first meeting were incredibly rude. However, I couldn't interfere with Mirabel's marriage. "Excuse me," I said as I reluctantly took my seat. Perhaps because I didn't retort. John's family looked at me with amusement. Mirabel watched me with concern. John seemed a bit angry at his family's lack of manners. Furrowing his brow. Oblivious to this, John's mother was in high spirits. "We reserved a course meal for today. It's $600 per person," she said cheerfully to John's sister-in-law. "Really? The course meals here are so expensive, I can't wait to eat a lot," the sister-in-law replied excitedly. John's father nodded in agreement. After a while, the staff brought in the food. Colorful amuse-bouches. With 3 types on one plate. Each looking very delicious. But in front of me, there was only water. "What?" I was about to call the staff back, but they had already left, leaving me with just water. John was stunned by this scene. His sister-in-law, knowing this would happen, snickered. Mirabel noticed too and said worriedly, "Mom." Then, in the next moment, John's mother smirked. "The poor are just fine with water," she said, laughing boisterously. I frowned at her lack of class. "What is the meaning of this?" I asked her. The choice of this restaurant and the invitation came from John's family. Yet, they had no intention of hosting us properly. I was quite irritated inside. John's mother glanced at me and laughed joyfully, seemingly indifferent to my anger. Perhaps even enjoying it. "Oh? Not just poor because you're a single-parent household, but also not too bright? Why would we welcome someone like you?" she taunted. John's father nodded as if agreeing with her. "Aren't you ashamed of being a single parent? A woman who got abandoned by her husband is nothing but flawed." "Well, a plain Jane like you wouldn't be in demand anyway," he said, laughing heartily. His one-sided assumption that my ex-husband left me was utterly inhumane. I truly thought it was unbelievable as a human being. John's sister-in-law was also laughing, looking down on me. I wouldn't want to end up like Mirabel's mother, working for low wages despite being a woman. "It's really pathetic how you've given up on being a woman," she said, sneering at me. "Mom. I'm so sorry," Mirabel said, her face on the verge of tears. She must feel responsible for putting me in this difficult situation. She was looking down, clearly upset. I reached my limit of tolerance. After being looked down upon so much, I couldn't stay quiet any longer. It was about time to fight back. At that moment. Enough! It's shameful how you all are ganging up and insulting Mirabelle's mother. Don't you have any decency as adults? John yelled. I was surprised that John stood up for me. John. Mirabelle looked just as shocked. John, his face red with anger, was scolding his family. But his family showed no remorse. John's mother, still laughing joyously, said, "There's no need to defend the poor." Why is John getting so upset? John's father was nodding in agreement. John's words seemed to have no effect on them. They were astonishing. They seemed to lack common sense. It might be time for my counterattack. I had a trump card that would surprise John's family. At that moment, John's sister-in-law started staring intently at my face. I involuntarily glared back at her. Then she muttered, "Wait, could it be?" Suddenly, her face went pale. It seemed she had realized who I really was. I let out a small chuckle. John's sister-in-law was trembling. This can't be true. Noticing her change, John's father asked with a puzzled expression, "What's wrong with you? You've been acting strange." John's mother also looked surprised. "Oh my, you're as pale as a ghost. Are you feeling ill?" She seemed concerned for her daughter. Despite her trembling, John's sister-in-law couldn't stop. The fact she realized probably made it unavoidable. Then, she tentatively asked her father, "Dad, the company you work for is Henry Crafts, right?" She looked intently at her father, seeking confirmation. Henry Crafts is a small to medium-sized enterprise with about 100 employees. And the salaries aren't as high compared to large corporations. And yes, I'm familiar with Henry Crafts. Because it's related to my work. Laughing, John's father responded, "What's this all of a sudden? I may not look it, but I'm working hard as the head of the sales department." He continued, "Thanks to my connections, I even got you a part-time job at our company, didn't I?" "You should be grateful," he said, laughing heartily. "I thought so." John's sister-in-law looked resigned and deflated. Her father, puzzled, asked her, "But why are you asking that? You just want to brag about working full-time because this poor woman is likely in some irregular employment?" He looked at me disdainfully. "I'm going to bring this man down." I vowed in my heart that. Then, John's sister-in-law let out a light sigh and started speaking. "Dad, don't you know the clients of our company?" "Clients of the company?" he asked, looking confused. John's mother was a full-time homemaker, so probably not understanding much about business matters. She looked equally bewildered. John's sister-in-law explained hesitantly. "I've met Mirabelle's mother before, inside the company. Her makeup was heavier then, so I didn't recognize her right away." John's father seemed to be in a state of confusion. "Inside the company?" "I'm pretty sure I remember all the employees, including the part-timers, but I don't recall such a woman." I frowned at his rude remark of calling me an old lady. But it seemed he was too preoccupied to notice. He was desperately trying to remember, having heard inside the company. However, since I never spoke directly to John's father, it's understandable he wouldn't remember me. As I was thinking this, John's sister-in-law started apologizing. "Mirabelle's mother, I'm truly sorry for what happened." Seeing her behavior, John's parents began to get flustered. "Why are you apologizing?" "There's no need to bow to such a poor person," John's mother said, trying to lift her daughter's head. "That's right. Don't you have any pride? Apologizing to a poor person like her?" John's father shouted at his daughter. John's sister-in-law glared fiercely at their parents. "Dad, Mom. You know, Mirabelle's mother is actually really wealthy. Much more than Dad ever could be." "What?" John's father glared back at his daughter. Clearly not expecting such a statement from his own child. John's mother also hysterically shouted in response to her daughter's words, "What are you saying?" With a resigned attitude, John's sister-in-law continued. "Well, Mirabelle's mother is a president. I've served her tea in the company's reception room. You know Morgan Baggs, right?" Upon hearing this name, John's father suddenly froze. Then, slowly turning his neck, he looked at me. I let out a deliberate chuckle. John's father's face turned ashen. "Morgan Baggs? Isn't that the brand the president finally persuaded for a collaboration, which is about to happen?" This time, it was John's mother who screamed. Morgan Bags, that's the brand that has stores in department stores, right? My bag is from there, she said, looking at her bag repeatedly. I remembered seeing a familiar bag when we entered this restaurant's private room. John's mother was holding it carefully under her chair. It might be a breach of manners in a high-end restaurant, but it must be her favorite bag. I chuckled slightly and told her. That's a magazine giveaway, isn't it? I'm honored that you're using my brand. John's mother's face turned bright red. And she looked down. Clearly embarrassed that her bag's origin was revealed. I quickly took out my business card. I am Talia Morgan, the representative of Morgan Bags. John's parents stared intently at the business card. She really was the president. John's father trembled as he looked at the card. John's mother also looked incredulous. I silently watched the two, staring at the card, and spoke. It seems collaboration with Henry Crafts won't be possible anymore. That's unfortunate. Hearing this, John's father had a shocked expression. Why? That collaboration is the most important project our president is working on. If we cancel it, our company will. He said, trembling in fear. What's wrong? John's mother, not understanding the situation, asked him. The truth is, Henry Crafts has been struggling. Handmade crafts are becoming less popular compared to the past. When I was young, my mother used to sew everything by hand. But now, cheap ready-made products are more common. It's just the way times have changed. Henry Crafts, heavily affected by this trend, has been seeing a decline in sales year by year. When the president of Henry Crafts proposed the collaboration, he mentioned it would be a life-saving move for the company. However, I've been collaborating with numerous famous brands. So honestly, I wasn't very interested in partnering with a smaller company like Henry Crafts. Initially, I declined the president's proposal, but eventually, his enthusiasm won me over. And I agreed to collaborate on creating bags. But now, that's all in the past. John's father was trembling. Probably terrified of what was to come. I watched the two silently, still staring at the card, and spoke. Collaboration with Henry Crafts no longer seems beneficial. It was only the CEO's enthusiasm that convinced me. But a company with employees who looked down on Mirabelle. I stared coldly at John's father. He was sweating profusely. Then, in the next moment, he suddenly knelt down in front of me. What? As John's mother was confused by his action, John's father desperately begged for my forgiveness. Mirabelle and John were also shocked by his kneeling. I'm truly sorry. John's father apologized, rubbing his head on the ground. He seemed desperate. To me, his kneeling meant nothing. It was just a self-protective act after realizing my position. I thought there were no genuine apology. I spoke in a cold voice. Apologizing now? After looking down on Mirabelle and me. Thinking a mere apology would suffice after all this. John's father's thinking was incredibly naive. Then, John's father stood up quickly, realizing his performance was futile. It must have been just a performance. John's mother, still confused, said to me. We are going to be family, you can forgive us, right? She looked at me expectantly and continued. I'm a huge fan of Morgan Bags. Since we're family, I can get some products for free, right? She looked at me with hopeful eyes. I was dumbfounded and speechless. Mom, that's too convenient. John said, his face grim. Even he thought his mother's statement was too unreasonable. However, John's mother didn't seem to understand. Why not? There must be plenty of stock, right? It won't hurt to give away a few, she said, getting upset. John's father and sister-in-law looked at her in dismay. I looked at John's mother and declared. I cannot give away our products for free. After all, you are still strangers to me. She looked frustrated at my words. But Mirabelle and our John are gonna get married, right? That makes us family. As family, you should be helping us out financially. You're a CEO, after all. She said matter-of-factly. After all the derogatory comments. Her attitude showed no sign of remorse. Finally, John couldn't take it anymore. Mom, aren't you embarrassed to change your attitude so quickly just because you found out Mirabelle's mother is a CEO? John, his face red with anger, confronted his mother. But she seemed unfazed, laughing it off. What's wrong with that? A CEO like you must have money to spare, right? It wouldn't hurt to share a little. I calmly told her. Even if Mirabel and John get married, I have no intention of forming a bond with you all. John's mother looked shocked and tried to cozy up to me. Don't say that. We're gonna be family once they're married. Giving away a bag or two. I was infuriated by her audacity. As I contemplated how to respond, John stepped between John's mother and me. John? I asked. John looked troubled. I knew you were a CEO, and I kept quiet because I was sure my parents would trouble you if they found out. John's father looked regretful. You knew? If you had told me, I would have. If you knew, you'd have acted just like Mom, right? John coldly looked at his father. What kind of attitude is that to your parents? Keep this up, and you're disowned. John's father shouted at John. Mirabel was flustered by this exchange. John's father shouted. I'm fine with being disowned. I'm cutting ties with you, Dad and the rest. Why are you saying this? We raised you with so much effort. John's mother, still shaken, tried to talk to John. John's father and sister-in-law were stunned. He did not expect him to suggest cutting ties. I want to cherish Mirabel from now on. I don't need a family that disrespects Mirabel and her mother. John! John's mother broke down crying on the spot. John's father and sister-in-law stood there, dumbfounded. The pain of being disowned by their beloved son must be immense. But it was a consequence of their own actions. You'll regret this for the rest of your lives. I foresee a lot of hardships ahead for you, I said with a chuckle. Mirabel then joined in my stance. Even if we have children, we won't inform you, she said firmly to her in-laws. Not being able to meet our grandchildren. Please, spare us that. John's mother cried out in agony. Amidst this, John said softly, we're done being a family. This statement seemed to resonate. John's father and sister-in-law turned to us with faces about to cry, attempting to cling to us. I ignored such a display from John's family and left the restaurant with Mirabel and John. Later, I heard that John's father and sister-in-law were fired from their company. The day after the incident at the restaurant, I spoke with the president of Henry Crafts and expressed my desire to cancel the collaboration. Despite his persistent persuasion, I refused. I can't collaborate with a company that allows people to belittle others. While I sympathized with the president's desire to revive his company, I couldn't cooperate with a company where John's family worked. I explained the situation to the president. He was furious. Apparently, he has a daughter about Mirabel's age and couldn't forgive John's family's actions. The collaboration with my company was crucial for Henry Crafts. And John's family had ruined it. It was understandable that the president couldn't forgive them. John's father was of a significant age, and his sister-in-law had only been a part-time worker through his connections. With their dismissal from Henry Crafts, their prospects of finding new jobs were grim. Plus, John's mother was a homemaker. And they had been cut off from their only breadwinner, John. Once, John's parents came directly to my company to negotiate. Please collaborate with Henry Crafts. If you do, the president will rehire me. Even if collaboration is not possible, provide financial support. You're still family, aren't you? Families should help each other in tough times. They implored desperately. After treating us as poor people, to now claim family was laughable. I firmly told them. Neither collaboration nor financial assistance is possible. John has also cut ties with you, hasn't he? Please leave immediately. Despite my words, John's parents didn't seem inclined to leave. But they began, desperately trying to cling to me. I firmly reiterated to John's parents. Please do not appear before me ever again. If I see you again, I will call the police. Perhaps because I mentioned the police, John's father said, please, not the police. We won't come back again, and hastily left with John's mother. Their clothes were shabby, indicating they were probably not living well. These were the people who had derided others as poor. It was truly a case of getting what they deserved. Apparently, John's sister had become a complete recluse. Unable to find a job or get married. John's sister has become pessimistic about her future and apparently doesn't come out of her room anymore. Her future seems bleak indeed. 3 years have passed since then. Now, I'm living with Mirabel and John. Ideally, as newlyweds, they should be living alone. But John insisted, "I think it's safer for Mirabelle to be with you, especially in case of emergencies," so he decided to live with us. John, busy with his work, often helps with household chores alongside Mirabelle. I couldn't be more grateful. There's been a significant change for the three of us. One day, Mirabelle approached me with a serious look. "Mom." I was worried something had happened to her. Then, her expression turned to a smile. "I'm going to be a mom." She happily stroked her belly. "That's wonderful, Mirabelle. Congratulations," I said, embracing her in joy. John stood beside us, smiling happily. "I know there will be many challenges ahead. But I believe we can overcome them. The prospect of a new grandchild brings me immense joy. Imagining our happy future, I couldn't help but smile."